In this video, we're going to be talking about some of your best retro gaming pickups. Now, of course, I'm going to be sharing some personal stories as well, but I want all of you to be thinking about some of your best stories. But before we get into that, I want to go over some of the most common ways that these awesome retro gaming pickups happen. We've all got our different stories, but there's basically one of two different circumstances that are going to apply to any single one of these. The first circumstance is that whoever you're getting it from doesn't understand how valuable what they're giving you is. And the second circumstance is that they don't care how valuable it is. And depending what kind of conscience you've got, you're probably going to feel less guilty about that second circumstance. That being said, I know some of us will go full Pinocchio on this, where the first circumstance will not bother us because it's like, hey, it's not our responsibility to make sure they know how valuable what they have is. If, they list a price and we pay it, then it's fair. But let's jump back to that second scenario where somebody has something really valuable, retro gaming related, but they don't care how much it's worth and they're willing to give it to you. A lot of times this will be like an old friend or something who grew up not really caring about video games anymore. And they're like, yeah, I have all my old stuff. Do you want it? And then they just give it to you for free or, maybe next to nothing, or you trade them something or whatever. So yeah, a lot of times it'll be an old friend, but you know who else it can be sometimes? That's right, yourself, where you forget you have something and your parents have it buried away up in your attic or basement or who knows where, and you just forgot you had it or thought it had been, gotten rid of at some point. And then you stumble across it and you're like, all right, sweet. And then that's extra cool because it's your original stuff. So it has that sentimental value attached to it as well. However, the type of stories that I anticipate most of you having, and these are actually the only kinds of stories that I have myself, are where you pick up stuff at a flea market or a yard sale or a thrift store, something like that. And in all of these cases, you're buying things that are way undervalued, where whoever's selling them doesn't know how much they're worth, on like eBay, stuff like that. All right, so with that said, why don't I get into some of my stories? Now, the first story takes place at a flea market. And funny enough, this was actually the very first time I ever went to a flea market to look for retro gaming stuff. This was back in maybe like 2011 or something like that. And so anyway, so I get up really early and I go to this flea market, and I've heard all these stories about how amazing it is, how all this, cool retro gaming stuff you can find for next to nothing at these things. So I've got high hopes going in there. So I wake up early, I head over there, I'm in, through the gates first thing, and a lot of people aren't even set up yet, and not only do I not see any retro gaming stuff for cheap, I don't see any retro gaming stuff at all. And so it's like a huge bummer. So I'm walking around thinking like, man, I woke up super early on a weekend morning like an idiot for no reason. I'm walking around and I go back to my car and I'm like, should I just leave? And I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just go back in one more time? And there's more stuff set up by this point, and I'm looking around, and I look around for a while, and I'm still not really finding much of anything. Some of the retro gaming stuff I do find is like secondhand sellers who are like, basically just selling stuff for eBay prices, so that's worthless. And so I keep walking around, and then I see somebody, they're just selling a bunch of random stuff. And this is a tip for the flea markets for finding the deals, is that it's always the people who, don't realize what they have. And so this person just had a bunch of random stuff. And so I'm looking around and I see, and I'm like, is that a Sega Saturn? And not only was it a Sega Saturn, it was a Japanese Sega Saturn. So I'm like, that's really weird that like a video game collector wouldn't have that. Just somebody who probably barely even knows what it is selling it. So I pick it up, and even more strange, I look on the back, it's region modded. It has like region switches, one for the actual like games and then one for the language as well. And I'm like, this is weird. So I ask them how much they want, and they said like $30 at first, which seemed kind of high for somebody who didn't even know what it was. and I got them down to like 25 or something. I brought it home and it worked. It actually worked. So that was really weird, and what a deal that was. My next story isn't as big of a deal from a monetary perspective, but it just more so the timing of it was really cool for me. So this was right when I bought an original Nintendo again. I did not grow up with one. I always just played it at friends' houses and stuff like that, which, I mean, everyone had them, so I got to play it a lot. But I finally got my own later in life, and I had never watched the movie The Wizard before, and you gotta watch the movie The Wizard, right, if you're a retro gaming fan. So it's like a Friday evening or something, and I'm watching The Wizard, and, you know, I'm enjoying it for what it is and all that kind of stuff. And it's putting me in the mood to play Nintendo games, right? And for some reason, I did not have the original Contra yet. It was like one of the games I really wanted to get. So I paused the movie halfway through. I needed to go to the grocery store to get some stuff. So I'm going to the grocery store, and on the way to the grocery store, there's a Goodwill. So I'm like, oh, I'll pop into the Goodwill, let's see. I usually never found anything there. But so anyways, I go into the Goodwill, and sitting there, funny enough, are a couple NES games. One game was some throwaway game. I can't remember what it was. But the other one was Contra for $3. And I was like, that's awesome. So, but it did have a sticker on it, right? A Goodwill sticker right on the label. So I was like, don't, these damn stickers. But so anyways, I buy it, and the sticker came right off. No problem. So that was just the timing with watching the Wizard, being in the middle of watching the Wizard and then stopping and going and finding that and then getting to play it right away. That was just a really cool little story for me. Okay, my final story is actually a pickup that ended up not working out for me, but it's one of my favorite stories, so I want to tell it anyway. So back when I initially looked into getting a big CRT TV to play my retro games on, I was really interested in just what they would look like. I didn't know because I wasn't initially playing my retro games on a CRT TV, which seems weird to think now, but anyways. So there was this one TV that was like about a block and a half away from my house, and so I figured, hey, why don't I give this one a chance? But my wife was gone with the car, which was my girlfriend at the time, but anyways, she was gone with the car, and so I was like, well, how am I gonna get this thing back? I was just, that evening, I was really like, I really wanted to play it. Like, I wanted to try it out. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to carry this thing a block and a half. That'll be my workout for the day. I'll skip my workout and that'll just be it instead. So I carry this thing like through neighborhoods. I remember walking down the street and this girl was like walking her dog, and she just kept like way away from me. She was like, this crazy guy is gonna like drop his TV on my dog or something. Like, she looked at me like I was a complete psycho. I was just carrying this giant TV down the street, and I got it back, and I plugged it in and worked, and was playing it and everything. And it worked great, except that on one of the inputs, it would kind of cut in and out. It was doing this weird thing, the signal. So anyways, I was like, well, I can't keep it. I need to bring it back. So of course I used the car to bring it back, but it was just really funny going back to where I got it from. It was like outside of this church or something, and I just drove up real quick, dropped it off, and drove away as quickly as I could. So I can just imagine them, because it was a couple days later that I took it back. I could just imagine them being so relieved when I first took it, and then seeing it back out there a couple days later, and them just being like, damn it, it's back again. Why? No. But so anyways, and of course it just sat there for months and months before it disappeared. I'm imagining they probably had to deal with getting it recycled or whatever. Okay, and so that does it for my stories, but of course I'm really excited to hear what some of your stories could be. So be sure to leave those stories down below. As you can tell from my stories, they don't have to be the biggest monetary things where you're saving a whole bunch of money. Just your favorite stories, some of your most fun stories, I'd love to hear. And be sure to comment on each other's stories as well if you can relate to them. But so anyways, yeah, leave those comments down below, and I will see ya in the next video.